Every morning, before the city remembered how to breathe, an old man sat on the same wooden bench at the Maple Street bus stop. The bench had been there longer than most of the buildings around it, its paint cracked and peeling, its metal legs rusted thin from decades of rain, snow, and neglect. It wasn't comfortable, and it certainly wasn't warm, but the old man arrived every day at exactly 6:15 a.m. and lowered himself onto it as carefully as if it were the most important place in the world. His name was Henry Calloway. To the people who rushed past him, Henry was just another background figure in a busy city. Some assumed he was homeless. Others believed he was waiting for a bus that no longer stopped there. A few noticed him only long enough to feel uncomfortable and then quickly looked away. He didn't blame them. Henry had lived long enough to understand that people weren't heartless. They were just overwhelmed. He sat straight, shoulders back, even though his body ached. His hands rested gently on the curved handle of a wooden cane worn smooth from years of use. His coat was always the same faded brown one, the sleeves frayed, the buttons mismatched. It wasn't fashionable, but it was clean. Henry had always believed cleanliness mattered, even when no one was watching. As the city slowly woke up, commuters passed by in waves. Coffee cups steamed in the cold air. Shoes clicked against pavement. Car engines hummed impatiently. Henry watched shoes more than faces, polished leather, scuffed sneakers, tiny boots skipping beside hurried parents. Every now and then he softly spoke, "Good morning." His voice was gentle, almost fragile, as if he didn't want to disturb anyone. No one ever answered. Phones stayed glued to faces. Earbuds stayed firmly in place. Henry smiled anyway. He had learned long ago that kindness didn't lose its value just because it went unnoticed. Inside the left pocket of his coat was something small and heavy. His fingers brushed against it often, especially on colder mornings when his joints stiffened and memories felt closer than the present. It was a metal badge, scratched and dulled by time, its edges softened from years of being carried. The engraving was still clear enough to read if someone ever bothered to look. Fire Department, Engine 17. That badge had once defined his entire existence. There was a time when Henry Calloway had not been invisible. He had been strong then, with broad shoulders and steady hands. He woke before sunrise in a modest house, filled with the smell of coffee and toast. His wife, Margaret, would complain softly that he stole the blankets at night, even though she always tucked them back around him before he left. "You're going to wear yourself out one day," she used to say as he pulled on his uniform. Henry would grin and kiss her forehead. Someone has to do it. Their children were small then, asleep in their rooms, unaware of how often their father walked straight into danger so others wouldn't have to. Henry always paused at their doors before leaving, listening to their breathing, reminding himself why he did what he did. He was a firefighter for over 30 years. He never thought of himself as brave. Bravery, in his mind, was something people talked about when they didn't understand fear. Henry felt fear every time the alarm rang. He just didn't let it stop him. He ran into burning buildings with smoke clawing at his lungs. He crawled through darkness so thick He couldn't see his own hands. He carried children who screamed and clung to him like lifelines. He pulled strangers from twisted metal while gas leaked onto the pavement beneath them. He held hands when there was nothing else he could do and stayed until the end, even when he knew the end wouldn't be good. And then he went home. No interviews, no spotlight, no speeches, just tired muscles, soot-stained skin, and Margaret waiting with quiet relief in her eyes. Margaret worried constantly. Every siren made her heart skip. Every late night stretched her nerves thin. She kept a small scrapbook hidden in a drawer, not of medals or newspaper clippings, but of moments Henry missed, birthday candles blown out without him, Christmas mornings started late, family dinners reheated again and again. She never complained loudly. She loved him too much for that. "You give too much," she once whispered while they sat together in the dim light of the living room. Henry squeezed her hand. He didn't know how to explain that giving was the only thing he knew how to do. The call that ended his career came at 2:37 in the morning. An apartment fire on Ninth Avenue, fourth floor, children trapped. Henry was already moving before the details finished coming through the radio. The building was old, the smoke thick, the heat relentless. He found the children huddled together in a bathroom, coughing, crying, terrified. He wrapped them in his jacket and guided them out, one step at a time. Once they were safe, he turned back. Someone always turned back. That was when the ceiling gave way. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. When Henry woke up, the world felt distant and unreal. Machines beeped steadily. White walls closed in around him. A doctor spoke gently, choosing words carefully. His leg was crushed beyond repair. He would never run again. He would never wear the uniform the same way. Henry stared at the ceiling and nodded. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He had spent his life accepting things as they came. The city honored him. There were ceremonies and applause, speeches about sacrifice and bravery. Margaret stood beside him, her eyes shining with pride and fear. But applause fades, ceremonies end, and life moves forward whether you're ready or not. Then cancer entered their lives without knocking. At first, it was small things, fatigue, missed meals, quiet pain. Then came hospital rooms, treatments, and whispered conversations doctors thought Henry couldn't hear. Margaret lost her hair, then her strength, then pieces of herself Henry didn't know how to live without. He sat beside her bed every night, holding her hand, wishing desperately that courage and love could save her. They couldn't. When Margaret died, the house felt wrong. The silence was louder than any alarm Henry had ever heard. He stopped sleeping in their bed. It felt too big, too empty. He moved to the couch, surrounded by memories that never gave him rest. Their children called at first, then less often, then only on holidays. Life pulled them away just as it was supposed to. Henry told himself he understood. Still, the quiet grew heavier. He sold the house, then the furniture, then pieces of his life, until everything fit into 2 suitcases and the coat he wore every day. That was when he found the bench. The bus stop faced the old fire station where Engine 17 used to be. The station had moved years ago, but Henry hadn't. Sitting there every morning was his way of remembering who he had been, of staying close to something that once mattered. Even with nothing left, Henry never stopped helping people. When someone dropped groceries, he helped. When a child fell, he offered comfort. When a car wouldn't start, he pushed despite the pain in his leg. Helping wasn't something he chose, it was who he was. One cold December morning, a young woman sat beside him. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling. After a long silence, she whispered that her father had died the night before. Henry didn't rush to speak. He didn't offer empty comfort. He simply said, "Tell me about him." She talked, and Henry listened. When her bus came, she hugged him tightly. "You saved me today," she said. Henry smiled. He had saved someone again. That night, a brutal snowstorm swept through the city. The cold was unforgiving. Henry stayed on the bench longer than usual. His body felt weak, his breath shallow. When he tried to stand, his legs failed him. He collapsed onto the frozen ground. People walked past. Some thought he was sleeping. Others didn't want to get involved. Then a child stopped. "Mister, are you okay?" A young boy tugged at his mother's hand. "He's cold." She knelt, saw Henry's face, and called for help. At the hospital, a nurse removed Henry's coat and the badge fell to the floor. Everything changed. Firefighters filled the room. Stories surfaced. Recognition spread. Henry opened his eyes to faces filled with gratitude and tears. "I never needed medals," he whispered. "I just didn't want to be forgotten." "You won't be," someone said, holding his hand. Henry passed away 3 days later. The city paused. Fire trucks lined the streets. Sirens wailed, not in urgency but in respect. The bench at the bus stop was replaced. A plaque was placed beside it. "Henry Calloway. He saved lives, even when no one was watching." Now people slow down when they pass that spot. They look, they notice, and sometimes they choose kindness for someone sitting quietly beside them, because the greatest heroes are often the ones we almost never see.